I'm Serenity Cox. I am an amateur adult content creator and Vixen Media Group contract performer, as well as a Wifey channel ambassador.
Okay. Speak to what's Wifey?
What is Wifey? Okay, Wifey is a channel under Vixen Media Group. It's their newest project where they feature real-life couples who are in the Hotwife lifestyle. They do a whole interview portion, talk about how they got into the lifestyle, and then they follow it up with a really steamy adult scene.
Okay. So I feel like for me, because I do talk about dating and relationships, and I feel like we're going to get into that a little bit as well. But the biggest thing I want to start with, and I think it's just because of the current climate that we're in. We heard what happened like 48, 72 hours ago in America. Safety and just, it's this real icky feeling that's out there, right? And we were just talking before we hit the record button. For you, because you're a creator, people can recognize you. How do you navigate the world that we live in, especially being in the Toronto area?
So my face is out there in a lot of, I guess, interesting websites and all over the internet, basically. I also live a very regular life, in a big city where on a daily basis, people may or may not recognize me. Personally, I haven't had a lot of experiences, no negative experiences, where anybody has singled me out in my personal life. But it is always something that's kind of on my mind. But yeah, for the most part, people have been, I've had messages afterwards being like, hey, I saw you here. Was that you? And I'm like, yeah, thank you for not approaching me when I'm, out with, friends or whoever. But yeah, for the most part, it's been pretty good for me. I haven't felt unsafe in any scenarios.
Okay, no, that's good to say, because I think like we hear it a lot of times, like even with like content creators, it doesn't matter how big and small they are. They can't even go places without being harassed. They're going to a dinner or they're in a mall and it's like mobs and herds of people. You know what I mean? The city where I'm from, I remember I was working for Bell Mobility Telecommunications. Justin Bieber was in the mall and everybody lost their mind. And people were running around like, yo, it's Bieber, it's Bieber, it's Bieber. But then when you saw him, it's like he had a mob of people around him. But that was his security. And they kind of like boxed him in. So he's like walking in like a circle, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in my day-to-day life, I think most people just don't recognize me because I just look like a regular lady out doing her thing. When I'm out with, say, the Vixen team and they have us all done up and we're like in the branded clothes and stuff, we generally have a security escort with us if we're out at an event or doing something like that, because we're broadcasting who we are. In my day-to-day life, it's not like that. I don't look like I do when I'm out with the Vixen gang.
Love that. So let's speak to, you were a nurse.
Yeah.
Right? What made you make the pivot and the switch?
That was a tricky one. I balanced the two worlds for a long time. Well, I haven't been doing this that long, but for a couple years. I worked full-time as a nurse, and I also did my content creation on the side. But it got to a point where the content creation was like more and more opportunities were coming forward, and I was saying no to a lot of things that really would have been valuable opportunities because of my shift work and my dedication to my job. So it was kind of it came to a point where I had to make a decision. Do I keep on doing both of them and saying no to a lot of really exciting and interesting opportunities, or do I just take a pause on the nursing career, which I did. It's been a year and a half since I left nursing. I still keep current with my license because it's always an option to go back to, which is lovely with that career. But it was a conscious decision that I wanted to see where I could go with the adult industry, because I'm a realistic person and I know that's not going to last forever. So I'm going to ride the wave.
What part wasn't going to last forever?
The adult industry. Okay. For me, anyway.
Okay.
It's not like a long-term, 10 years from, maybe it will be. But in my eyes, I'm very realistic. And I'm like, you know what, this is, people come and go, they ride these waves. The next new thing is always coming out. So I want to go, do as much as I can while I can, because it's not necessarily going to be here for me in 5 years. Nursing will. Healthcare is always going to be there.
Let's speak to, because you're married. So speak to the dynamic of what that looks like, being married and then off screen.
Okay. So my husband is my partner in content creation. So it's very much intertwined. Our adult content is all about our journey into a hot wife dynamic, which is something we started exploring maybe 5 years ago, and it kind of fell hand in hand with content creation. So we'd been married, we'd been monogamous for a number of years, and we'd always kind of gradually talked about it and the kind of things that excited us, and eventually we just said, hey, we're gonna just go for it, open up our relationship into these hot wife scenarios. Was really exciting, and then filming it became a big part of it, which led into the content creation. So my marriage and my journey into being a hot wife and these hot wife dynamic is just very closely related with my journey into content creation and then adult industry.
So for the audience, because I have it's a mix, a lot of women, a lot of men. Explain hot wife. What is that?
So I didn't come up with the term. I find it a weird term. A lot of these terms aren't great, but they help people to understand what the dynamic is. So hot wife is a married couple, or you don't have to be married, but a partnered couple where one of them seeks out sexual experiences with other people outside of that two-person unit, and the other person does not, but they support and get excited by their partner. So for example, my husband really enjoys when I pursue experiences with other men. Sometimes he's involved, sometimes I bring home stories to him, but it really is all about driving that excitement between my husband and I. A lot of people get it mixed up. I always have to sort of define cuckolding at the same time, because a lot of people confuse the two, because there is a spectrum within both. Cuckolding is when in the relationship somebody, say the wife, does have experiences with other people, but it's more degrading towards the husband, and they kind of bring it back in more of I'll just say degrading way. That's not what we do. It doesn't mean that one is right and the other one's wrong or anything like that. Just we do hot wife, which is where everybody's just having a good time and it's for everybody's pleasure. And it's not a cuckolding relationship where you're denying the husband, and a lot of people have a lot of fun with that too. But
I hear you. Because I think, because for me, I believe in monogamy, but then there's the other element of why I see there's folks that are opening up their relationships. And I get it. At first, when I was a little bit younger, maybe let's go 15 years ago, and you hear about it, it was too taboo. And I think what ended up happening is a lot of folks are like, oh, that's gross, that's this. But I see where some folks want to pursue that. So I would speak to you like this, because I feel like the audience are going to give a little bit of bite back, not necessarily to you, but it's like, how can a woman want to do that per se? Yeah. What would you say?
And don't worry, because I've heard it all. I've read the comments. I've heard it all. So for my relationship, and I can't speak to anybody else's relationship. I can't guide anybody else's relationship. We're all individuals. We all have our own kinks, our own fantasies, our own ways that make relationships work. I don't say that my relationship's any better than anybody else's, but what works for us is that this took us years to get where we are, and it started with a lot of conversations and a lot of sharing, and it was, I don't know how, we were married for, I don't even know how long, for a while before we actually said that we're going to do this. And it was completely about us and just adding a little more excitement to our intimate time by bringing in another person into that experience. Not bringing another person into our relationship, but just in a just purely sexual way. And not everybody is wired the way my husband is, where that's exciting for him. Not a lot of people, or not everyone could handle seeing their partner with somebody else without feeling like intense jealousy or just not being okay with it. If my husband had those feelings, I wouldn't be doing it. We had a lot of discussions, built up a lot of trust beforehand to make sure that this was something we were both going to be okay with and that it fed the positive things in our relationship and there's no negative feelings. And it is also a trial and error where sometimes we do something, if one of us is not quite comfortable with it, we talk about it, we say, okay, we're not gonna do that again, scratch that off the list, move on, and it's all about communication.
So, because communication is always the biggest form of respect. I've been saying that lately. So when it comes down to dating and relationships from your point of view, how do those conversations look like between you and him when you first decided to want to get into all of this? Like, give some specifics.
So It's tough because it was such a long journey. I'm going to rewind right to the beginning when we first started dating. I'd always had monogamous relationships. He'd always had monogamous relationships. I'd never experienced somebody who was excited by my acts with somebody else. That was completely foreign to me. I was exposed to it early on in dating him when he would ask me about previous relationships or like previous things I'd done with other partners. And to me, I was like, why do you want to know, right? Because I'd only experienced guys who were like jealous or like wanted to do the slut shaming or like, you wanted a good girl, right? But he would ask me like genuinely excited, be like, so what was, this previous partner of yours like? And I would just remember being so shocked that he actually just genuinely wanted to know. And so when I got a little more comfortable talking to him about previous partners, I could just see the excitement in him and how he was just like, tell me more, like this is great. And so it just kind of over time, me talking about experiences I'd had and feeding off of his excitement also brought out excitement for me. So then it got to the point where I didn't have a lot of experiences in the past. So then I would make them up and it became like a role-playing thing. And I knew that if I made up some kind of like, infidelity type of story, I'd see the like fire in his eyes and we'd have a great night, And so it was just a fun kind of like playing back and forth with these themes. And a lot of our sex life just kind of fell onto these themes. And I knew how to push the right buttons for him. It was just really like a fun journey for us to kind of play with these fantasies. And I learned that like I really liked it as well. So over the years, it was just kind of like that developed, to the point where we were so comfortable with each other and we had such a strong relationship. Like, this is just our sex life. This is not like, a reflection of any other part of our lives. This is just in our intimate time together. There was like a lot of factors in place. There was like the pandemic was like prime COVID. There was a lot of like work stress. There was, I was working in emergency in the middle of the pandemic. It was crazy times. And we used that time to kind of focus on our sex life and just, having that as an outlet for the crazy stuff that was going on in our world. And we were just like, you know what? Like, screw it. What are we afraid of? Why are we, dancing around these themes? Like, why don't we just go out and try it? Like, we're completely, like, have complete trust in each other. We're happy in our relationship. Let's just try it. And so we did. And it was fantastic. Like, I went out and saw another guy, came home to my husband, told him all about it. And it was like the most beautiful, like, reconnection afterwards, something like we had never experienced before. And we kind of got hooked. Mm-hmm. So it was years. It wasn't just like one day, we were like, hey, I'm going to go out and, sleep with another guy. What do you think of that? It was like years of building these foundations and having these talks and kind of gradually pushing it a little further, and then adding the piece where we did it for real. So it wasn't like we went into the relationship already doing this, and it wasn't like it was a sudden onset thing. It was just years of buildup. We didn't realize at the time that hotwifing was even a thing. We didn't know there was a name for it. We didn't know there was a genre of content for this. Like, we didn't know any of this. We just knew this is what we're enjoying doing. And then when we started doing our research on fetish sites and kink sites, we were like, oh, other people are doing this too. There's a name for it. Yeah. And, so it was just sort of a thing we did. And
so the vetting process, what does that look like? Because you're meeting guys. Is that guys locally, or is that like, is he picking the person? How's that looking like?
So for us, we're not really into sex clubs, swingers clubs, big events. We're more private people. Okay. So we'll use dating apps, find people who are interesting on dating apps. I pick them out. I show them to my husband. I'm like, look at this guy's profile, and he'll feel like, he seems cool. And then I will always message them first, get a feel for them through messages. And then I have a daytime meetup in somewhere public, this is the safety piece, right? like a coffee shop or a park, somewhere, crowded with no expectation of anything beyond just meeting you face to face to see that you're a real person, that I'm a real person.
That they're not presenting any like dark energy or anything
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
and I think that's important. I never just, find a guy and say like, oh, let's hook up. Like, this is not how we do things, because safety is huge.
I kind of figured, yeah.
So there's a meetup during the day. I come back, tell my husband, like, this guy seems all right. And then, there's a process to it. And then it's like everybody gets STI tests, because, again, that kind of safety is huge as well. And then we make a plan for once everybody's tests are back and we have a free evening, and then I'll go on like a date with the person. So there is a process to it to make sure that we are safe. We don't just go out and do random.
No, I kind of figured that, because this world, especially dating apps,
yeah,
you've been on them. It's wild.
Yeah.
They're wild.
Yeah.
I was using it back in, 2020 pandemic, like 2021, as like case studies, just to see like how women were interacting. And it's very, very interesting, because it's like, I know guys that will say is women don't normally message first, right? But for you to message first to kind of vet that out, which brings a question to me, do they know about your profession? Do you bring that up to them, or is it they just kind of figure that out on their own?
I always lay it all out in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to surprise anybody with this.
Makes sense.
Because it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste my time or theirs going out, and then they're like, whoa, like, this isn't what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
So like in my actual profiles on sites, I have, that I'm married and this is what I do. Like, I want people to know that I'm a married person. I'm not looking for a relationship. So I try to put as much as I can into my profile. I always also, like, as safely as I can without, getting kicked off of a dating app. Like, I'm a, content creator, so ask me questions if you're into, like, because sometimes when I will go on a date with a guy, I will film it for my OnlyFans kind of thing.
Makes sense.
So
Content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, there's kind of twofold. So sometimes it's just for a date, and sometimes it's for content.
For content.
Yeah. So I
is
lay
there a
everything
waiver
out.
form that you have to put out for that too, for the other person?
Yeah.
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 That makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like, it's interesting to hear, because I think there's some folks that, because the internet's dark, right? And there's debates and there's these talking points, and you see these podcasts. And that's not what I'm here to do, where they want to debate the adult film creators because of their nature and their stature. And I feel like with what I do is I make more of a wholesome connection in conversation to really get the grasp of what's going on. You know what I mean? Because I think, like, in life we want to learn, and there may be some points that we don't always agree with. You know what I mean? Because if you were to ask me, do I agree with what you're doing? I would say is, from my point of view, I couldn't see me and my lady doing that, right? If I was dating somebody, committed relationship and things like that. And I think there would be some people who would be like, well, no, you got to do that, because I think it's that the jealousy piece. And I feel like some folks, there's like that deep-rooted darkness of jealousy that could eventually come out in things like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm never trying to tell people this is the way that you have to have a relationship.
Facts.
Or like, it's not like a monogamy versus a non-monogamy argument. It's not an argument. It's an individual choice. And it's what everybody's comfortable and what works for you. And like, that's what's beautiful about being human beings. We're all completely unique. We all have different, like, we're all wired differently.
Absolutely. Because there could be a sports team that you don't like, and we may have a debate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do sports or anything like that?
No, not really.
No? You sure you don't do sports? No baseball?
No.
Okay.
No, I cheer on the Toronto teams when I can, but I don't. I don't dabble in it myself.
Fair is fair. It's all good. Sometimes you got to bring it up, right? You never know. So when you see the complexion of like dating and relationships right now, right? Let's take the adult industry out of it. What do you think is happening in dating relationships? What you can see from like friends that are going on?
What do I see in dating and relationships? That's tricky, because most of my my network are, happily settled down the way. So I say settled down the way I am. I guess it makes sense.
Settled down the way you are.
No, but I'm in I'm in a what would you call it, a secure relationship for many years. So I don't have a lot of friends who are actively dating right now. I am very thankful that when I am on the dating apps, I'm not looking for a partner. I'm just looking for fun because I wouldn't even know where to start these days. And it all depends what point of your life you're in and what you're looking for. But I've already done I found my person. I have my person,
Sure.
Which is a nice thing to have when you're on dating apps.
So when you talk about these dating apps and say you meet some of these guys, do some of these guys try to push for like another encounter or maybe even a relationship? If you're entitled to say.
So often we'll have more than one encounter, and I'm okay with that. Like some, I've met some people who I've become friends with, and have ongoing friendship with. I'll say, and sometimes it's just a one-time thing. So it kind of depends on the person. I've never had anybody be too pushy and try to insert themselves into like an actual relationship with me. I would back off pretty fast.
Absolutely. You got to change everything. Just delete.
Yeah.
Right? Goes dark,
Yeah, no, I'm not looking for that.
No, I hear you. So you're in the adult industry, and I think this is maybe a good conversation to even bring up because you have some creators out there that are maybe doing things that are not as ethical. We won't call any names on the pod, right?
Okay.
You probably will know exactly who I'm talking about. How do you feel about the non-ethical aspects of the adult industry?
So, yeah. Like, I'm not naive that this industry, like many other creative industries, has some shady parts to it. I like to associate myself with the parts of it that are good and positive and I feel are extremely ethical. For example, I mean, my main thing is my own content creation, which I strive to show like happy, positive sex, the female, like I strive to make sure in my scenes, like the woman is in control and like you always know that I'm having a good time. Like nobody's doing anything to me that I don't want to have done to me, right? It's all about me and my pleasure. And that's what I strive to show in my own content. And as well, the companies that I associate with, like Vixen Media Group, I think are like huge, like I think they're a beautiful company as far as ethical adult movies. They treat their people like fabulously. So I choose, and even the sites that I distribute my work on, I make sure that they have like a good verification process. I like when say I upload a video onto a site and then I get a thing back saying it's rejected because I forgot to put like a waiver form from somebody who's in it. I'm like, good, they're on it, right? Like that was my bad. I forgot to add that waiver form, making sure that everybody is, consenting to be in that footage. So I feel like things like that, knowing that the sites that I'm using are all, I feel ethical, make sure everybody is consenting, everybody is, happy to be there, doing what they want to do. Like I'm not naive that there are other things happening in the industry that I don't necessarily associate myself with. I associate myself with partners like Vixen Media Group and my little core group here in the city.
So you do volunteer work too.
I do volunteer work.
Yeah, you do volunteer work.
Yeah.
Speak about that. So
I volunteer once a week at a sexual health clinic here in the city. It's, I didn't name it the last time I was on, but Hassle-Free Clinic. They are a fantastic spot. So they have a women in trans clinic and a men in trans clinic. I volunteer at the women in trans clinic once a week, and they just basically do like all aspects of sexual health, STI testing, different treatments, different procedures, even just like counseling. I'm not in a clinical role there because I've shelved my nursing practice for now. I just kind of help in an administrative way. But they are a City of Toronto clinic, so they're quite, I would say, understaffed and they are stretched pretty thin. So I just like to help out there where I can because they do great work. They do work for, there's a lot of, say, international students in that area where they are. There's a lot of new Canadians, people who are seeking out help or don't know how to talk to their family doctors. They do give a lot of like free services as well. So anyway, fabulous work that they do there. So I like to help them out when I can.
What made you want to pursue that though, to give that education especially?
I started a couple years ago when I knew that I was going to be kind of stepping out of my nursing career, but I still wanted to stay in the healthcare space, but also in the sex positivity space. So I thought this was a good way to kind of keep both of those passions of mine in one place. I'm obviously very interested and passionate about sexual health because I think it's huge and it's important. And I don't think everybody realizes how safe adult performers are and how big it is to them to, because that's like their, well, I mean, it's their mental.
And I've done my research with that, yeah. I've done my research. Because you guys had to go through a lot of process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I'm out shooting with other content creators or when I'm out in LA doing a scene with Vixen, like I know that I'm with people who are completely safe. They're like testing all the time, like taking care of their bodies. And it's also it's nice to be around people who aren't afraid to talk about that stuff, because that is something I've found when dating people just out in the world is not everybody is comfortable having those conversations about sexual health and like when was the last time you were tested and
or even health in general.
There's health in general, and not taking it as like an insult when you ask them that, like asking somebody when they were tested last or if they can get tested before you have any intimate interactions with them isn't an insult. You're not just implying that they are going to pass something on. It's just encouraging people to be safe. I take the same precautions for those people,
Makes sense. No, because it's like, even I come from the health and fitness background, right? Which should have been many, many moons ago, like over 10 years. No, I'm lying. 6 years ago, because pandemic retired me. Mm-hmm. And even in health itself, what we put in our body, when you even think about just mindset and our, sleeping patterns and things like that, it all goes and it correlates. I would say maybe from my point of view, sex might be the last part, depending on the dynamics, right? If you have, or you're in a committed relationship, or if you're dating around and things like that,
Yeah, the sleep is so important. I didn't realize until I left shift work how sleep deprived I was, and how much healthier I feel now. Like a year and a half later of getting regular sleep at night and awake during the morning, as opposed to working my crazy night shifts and day shifts and 12-hour shifts. I just feel so much more present and like I'm not walking around in a haze.
Makes sense. So in the day in the life of you, because you do a little bit of modeling, but then how does the scenes work? Or is that like is it like you guys are batch recording all the scenes? Or is it like it's like I do a scene on like a Monday and then maybe like next week I do another scene?
So for I always say us because my husband's my partner.
Yeah.
We do everything together. He films all of our stuff. So we generally, for our own sites, for like OnlyFans and like our amateur stuff, we generally film once a week. We just pick a day when we're available, and we have like a good buddy in town who generally films with us. And we'll just pick a day and we'll do whatever we felt like doing that week, and then release that, and then the next week we film again. So we kind of do it on a weekly basis for our own content. And then when I film with Vixen, it's kind of just an open conversation whenever I'm available to go out to LA to shoot some of their pro scenes. Then I'll do that every few months or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How does, when you made the switch from nursing to the adult film, you had family and you had friends. How'd they react to that?
It was a mixed bag of reactions.
Yeah.
So people found out way before I actually left work. I was still working while people knew what we were doing. People were shocked at first because
did they just find out by themselves?
Yeah. A lot.
Oh wow.
Most people found out before we were ready to actually tell them. So it was
Google
a bit of a
search,
shock.
man. They always be just watching what we do.
We thought we were so smart, geo-blocking Ontario, but like everybody's got a VPN and
the geo-blocking is crazy.
So anyway, it got out. This is before I had signed with Vixen. This is before all that. We were just having like some sneaky fun on the side and posting, porn up videos. And it was fun, but yeah, it got bigger than we expected really fast in the early days, and a lot of people found out. We kind of found ourselves with like the option: do we become horrified and shut it all down, or do we lean into it and be like, this is normal and this is okay? And so obviously we chose. You were like, if if we embrace it and own it, it's not a problem, and it's not, anything against us. There's no fuel in the gossip. There's no, this is what we do, and it's okay. It doesn't change who we are. And so we really leaned into that stance, and that's kind of when we decided, like, screw it, we're going to make this into a business. We're going to keep with this, because there was more positives than there were negatives. Like the number of messages we were getting from other couples who were having the same kind of fantasies or themes, or wanting to try things that we were trying, messages about, asking for either advice or saying, I'm so happy to see content out there that represents what we've been feeling or what we've been thinking. Messages from women saying, like, it's nice to see a woman of a certain age, or like a woman who just like looks like a regular girl out there just enjoying her body and having, the best sex of her life. So we were seeing a lot of really positive feedback that we didn't expect. 'Cause at first it was just about, kinky fun for us. We didn't realize that we were going to be reaching people and actually evoking like emotions or inspiring other people in a really positive way. And so we were like, this is a positive that we didn't expect. So we didn't want to let that go. And so anyway, it all washed over, and everybody's fine now, and all of our important people in our life are still our important people in our life, and they love us for who we are.
No, because the only reason why I asked that, I know like some of us that still work, it's like I feel like our corporations watch what we do and things like that, and it can turn into, depending, right? Because you're always under surveillance everywhere you go. When you step out your house, you're under surveillance.
Yeah.
Right. You can't walk around. You can't walk out there without somebody like knowing what you're doing at any given time. So it's like, for myself, it's like, you work, and there's just going to be folks that have their reservations when it comes to certain things. And it's like, how do you maneuver that, Because it can't just all be, well, 1 minute I'm a personal trainer, or I'm a yoga instructor. They're like, oh, okay, cool. But like, I feel like when you're doing something a little bit different that's outside of the norm, then folks are like Sherlock Holmes with the magnifying glass,
I think I was hyper aware of how I behaved even before people knew at work, about how I behaved at work. I was always very professional, and there was never any crossover with anything I did for adult or for lifestyle with my workplace. And so people knew that this was something completely separate from who I was at work. When I walked in, the door of the emergency department, I was nurse, and I was, everything else was irrelevant. I don't know where I was going with that, but there was no crossover. There was no, nothing happened in my workplace. Not even I was very aware of even how I talked. If people were having a conversation that was kind of like, I don't know, like of a sexual nature, I kind of opted out of those conversations. Smart. Even before, because I didn't want to have any sort of,
I know what you mean.
For any kind of,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I never partook in those particular conversations, Yeah, I don't think I would have even before, but.
It's funny you say that, because when I was a trainer, where was I at the time? I was at Apple. I was working for Apple. And you'd be in the staff room, and folks would ask you, they would start a workout conversation to bait you to come in. And they'd be like looking for the answer, and they want you to speak up. But I'm like, I'm not here to, no. You're not going to get free information from me. Come to the gym if you want information.
Yeah.
Come do an hour workout. Come put the pain in, and things like that. Because I think what we're speaking to is like, when you're at work, and I know anyone that's watching this, when you're doing something different, it's like people get this infatuation. And it's like they can't just wrap their brain around the differences, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For sure. Wife, so on your shirt, Wifey.
Yes.
What is that? Wifey, is that .com?
Wifey.com.
Okay, so speak to, maybe there's some folks that watch this that want to go visit the website. What are they getting into? Okay,
what are you getting into? Be prepared. So it's specifically Hotwife couples. And what I like about it is kind of what we were talking about before, where I said I've had other couples reach out to myself through, whatever platforms I'm posting our content on, and, talking about, how this really spoke to them, and how this is, they can relate to what we're doing, and the dynamics and the kinks and the themes. I feel like if if this channel existed when my husband and I were first dabbling in it and like doing our research and finding out that other people were doing the same thing as us, I feel like it would have been really helpful, because sometimes, you don't need to follow somebody else's map or somebody else's pattern for what they're doing, but just seeing people who, I feel bad saying that you might need validation for what you're doing. You don't need to have validation from other people, but sometimes it helps. Just seeing other people who are just like regular folks and having a whole lot of fun doing something that you also find thrilling and exciting or sexy. I've never seen another company kind of highlight this type of relationship before and this type of dynamic, and they do it in a really classy way. I mean, I say classy, like there is a full-on sex scene in it, but I don't know, Vixen has a way of making things classy. So their new channel, Wifey, it's just kind of putting it out there and showing you real people, that it's not just staged acting. It's like these people are really doing this in their life, and they're bringing it into this beautiful, high-end studio atmosphere. And it's, I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff.
So if you weren't married, or say you weren't dating, do you feel like you'd be in this profession?
No.
Really?
No.
Huh.
No. Like I said before, this career path is so completely intertwined with my journey that I went on with my husband. Mm-hmm. This is not something that I see girls who do this on their own, and it's hard work, and they're workers, and there's a lot that they have to do to kind of like make it successful on their own. It's not a career path that I would have chosen for myself. It's also something that I got into later in life because it just reflected what I was doing in my life. I could not have handled this career like in my early 20s.
Why you say that?
I think there's a certain amount of maturity that you have to have. And a certain amount of life sense that you need to have before you, and I mean, some girls go into it young and they do great and they thrive and they become very successful. Myself, I don't think I could have. I don't think I had that kind of sense when I was younger, which is why I went into like a very traditional career path and like kind of learned my way there. It's not something that I would have found myself in unless, like I did it together with my partner. It's all been about documenting our journey, and even the professional adult movies that I make, at the core of it, this is still about my relationship with my husband, because it's just more of a fantasy and elaborate way of bringing home these stories to our bedroom where I tell him these crazy things I got up to on set, and we have this great connection over it. Mm-hmm. So it kind of just still fuels that core drive in my relationship. So it's a very different kind of career path than choosing it and wanting to just be on camera having sex.
No, it makes sense. Because it's a lot to process. It's a lot. I'm processing as I'm thinking, because I'm like looking at it from a point of view where there's going to be people that are going to say she's nuts, she's crazy. How can you do this to yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I try to say it in as delicate a way as possible, because I don't want to discourage, like, the other women who are choosing this as their career path. Like, that's fantastic for them. I don't want to say anything wrong about people who do choose this as a career path. It's just not what would have worked for me. Mm-hmm. This is just very much a two-person show, and it's about much more than just the career of it.
So is there any places in the world that you're trying to like shoot content in? If there's just one particular place,
Ooh.
There's got to be a bucket list somewhere.
There's a bucket list.
Unveil the list.
Oh my God! You know what? We really enjoy, like, for my personal content, we really enjoy outdoors scenes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just
one with nature.
It's just a thing for us, the nature. So, like, we love deserts, mountains, those kind of places where we can hike out to, nobody's around. That's more for us than, a sexy beach or a villa is lovely, but the more nature forward.
I like that. It's whatever. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Listen, the ones that are listening to this, I'll hold everybody accountable. Because I know there's some people that are going to be like, we've all have done things outdoors. We've all made it outdoors. Let's not act like we have not. You know what I mean? Because it's like, maybe you go for a walk. I know people are going to try to like timestamp this and clip this up. You go for a walk, you're with your partner, you're dating. Shit happens. You get one with, like you mentioned, nature. And things just happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's whatever. It's just like, it's an adventure, you know?
Yeah. You just have to bring bug spray, sunscreen, and maybe a towel.
Maybe a towel's crazy. But you know what? Okay, let's have some fun here because there's people that I'm pretty sure we know that are on the beach, local beaches, getting down to business. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, why would you do it on a beach? Like, it doesn't make no sense. It's too much sand. Sand getting everywhere. It becomes dangerous.
Yeah, there's a lot of sand. I mean, we've done it many, many times on beaches. But at the same time, there's the sound of the water and the sound of the waves. Yeah. And that's part of that atmospheric. Yeah. Like, it just sets the mood. Sand aside, like, have a shower after.
Have a shower after is wild. This hose down everything that's going on, eh? That's wild. That is wild. How do you feel about, because I hear women will say this in certain podcasts where they're not adult workers, but men that watch adult content are wanting to mate with women in the regular world like what they see on camera.
Okay, so saying like modeling what they see in the adult videos.
Modeling what they see in the adult videos in the normal day-to-day life. Not with what you do, but normal day-to-day life.
I think it's important for adults to know that what they see in content isn't an instruction book, and it isn't necessarily how things have to be or can be in your own sex life. We keep things pretty light in my own content. Like, we don't do anything kind of crazy or super aggressive. And I don't like to portray anything that could be misinterpreted.
I like that.
Because a lot of times, you know, you have the conversations about consent before you film anything. You have the conversations about what people are comfortable with and what people are not comfortable with. But the consumers and the viewers don't see those conversations. They just see what happens afterwards, which may be has to be completely consensual. And there's probably a lot that's cut or edited that you don't see. You don't see the application of lube, the water breaks, the, pausing to say, is this okay, or are you okay? Like, there's a lot more to it that people don't necessarily see when it's edited together into a video. The videos are meant to evoke certain arousal or certain emotions out of people. They're not necessarily instruction books, like I said. It's not necessarily how you do something. It's just supposed to get an arousal or a reaction out of people. And that's what people go to adult videos for, is to feel something. It's not to learn how to have sex.
I like that you say that, because I think some folks try to weaponize sex in a way where it's all about, well, I'm going to have my way with that woman, when in real life, it ain't like that. Mm-hmm. On the camera, it's like you got to use your discernment in a little bit. It's like pro wrestling. I like pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. You're not going to sit here and body slam somebody on a pro wrestling, Netflix, Monday Night Raw, SmackDown versus like real life. Because you got to understand, they're trained to land. They're trained to break the fall. You go do that to somebody out here on a trampoline, you might bounce them off the trampoline into something else. You know what I mean?
That's a great comparison. I might use that.
Yeah. No, because you got to think about it, right? Because you see it, and like I've mentioned, like in podcasting or in just like conversations where some women will speak about it, where some men think what they see on camera is what they can bring into an everyday lifestyle, and you can't necessarily.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, for sure. Where can everybody check you out, and what you got going on?
Okay, so a few places you can find me on Instagram, serenitycox.official. On Twitter, I'll warn you, it's a bit spicy, Serenity Cox TO, and then wifey.com. Otherwise, you can kind of just search for my name and
Just pop up.
I pop up everywhere.
Might get some new fans. Y'all, listen, comment on the podcast. I'm curious on this.
I'm going to watch the comments.
No. I really want to see if people are going to comment. I would like to see people comment and let's get a discussion. Because I think that I understand that side of the industry, right? Now, would I ever partake? That's a whole other topic for another day. You know what I mean? Maybe we switch it around and we get some of you adult content creators to interview guys and being like, so would you ever do this? How would this do this? You know, switch roles for a day, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Appreciate you. Make sure you leave a comment. Check out Serenity Cox. You know what I mean? And all that good stuff. And we're out.
Thank you.